Once a hero, Ezuri was a legend among his elven kind. Now twisted and consumed by Phyrexia, he seeks only progress. Ezuri is a very simple commander. He costs 1 blue, 1 green, 2 others for a 3/3 legendary elf. Whenever a creature power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. As far as I understand, those work kind of like emblems. So they always kind of sit there. But at the beginning of combat, on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Yeah, we're going to abuse this. We're going to abuse this real good. This is a fun little deck where you get to ask all your friends, what you gonna do, brother, when all these little dudes run wild on you? Little dudes like Experiment 1 will continue to grow, but with Ezuri, you can make it so he can regenerate whenever you need him to. Lower scale Coatl, whenever you draw a card, put a counter on him, or just dump a bunch on him with Ezuri. Either way works. They'll continue to grow. Kiora's Follower will untap any other permanent, so you can use this in a lot of ways. It's also very small. Oracle of Moldiah, also very small. Also, ramps you. Also lets you play additional land and play the top card of your library if it's land. Mormor Vig, Simic Visionary. Think of Vampiric Tutor for all your blue-green dudes. Master Biomancer just makes your dudes even bigger, and he'll trigger Ezuri. Patagia Viper triggers Ezuri. Makes a bunch of little things, too. Managorder Hydra triggers Ezuri and then just gets big quickly. Cards like Sage of Hours will give you infinite turns, so consider it. Solemn Simulacrum triggers Ezuri. Ramps you, draws you cards, everything you want. Shardless Agent. Cascade for some more little dudes. Triggers Ezuri. Simic Manipulator triggers Ezuri. Will allow you to gain control of things forever. Wild Beastmaster. Dump counters on this with Ezuri. And whenever it attacks, all your creatures get huge. Trigon Predator. Triggers Ezuri, destroys problematic artifacts or enchantments when you contact a player. Sakura Tribe Elder triggers Ezuri, ramps you into land. Always a great combination. Fathom Mage. Whenever a counter goes on that, you draw a card. So Ezuri's going to grow huge real quick. You get a lot of cards. Hangerback Walker. You could dump a bunch of counters on this with Ezuri, then kill it and get a bunch of 1/1s. With Flying. Scavenging Ooze. He just triggers Ezuri and helps to deal with problematic graveyards. Gyre Sage. For all those counters that are on it, it produces mana. So, ramp. Fertilid. Triggers Ezuri, but it's continuous go and find land cards. Genesis Hydra. This may not trigger Ezuri, but all the things it gets might trigger Ezuri. Champion of Lambhold will make everything you got unblockable. So, alright. Chasm Skulker. Yeah, while you're drawing cards, it grows bigger, and you make a bunch of squids. Acidic Slime. It's a staple for a reason, and it triggers Ezuri. Hooded Hydra. Jump counters on this, and, you know, get little snake things. Invisible Stalker. Hexproof unblockable. Dump counters on this. So now you've made all your little dudes. How do we make them even better? Doubling Season? That seems like a logical choice. With all these counters going into play, right? You could consider Hardened Scales. Just to get that extra counter each time. Can add up. Asceticism. All your stuff is now extremely difficult to deal with. Craterhoof Behemoth. All your stuff is now going to punch them in the face and probably just kill them. It's a game over card. Deadeye Navigator. Maybe the first Craterhoof didn't kill him. Maybe the second one will. Or all your other stuff. Inexorable Tide. Whenever you're casting a spell, you're putting another counter of the same type onto a thing. Contagion Engine. Put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player's controls, and then you can proliferate, and then proliferate again. Colonian Hydra. When it attacks, it doubles the number of counters on each creature you control. Fable of Wolf and Owl. Just constant token generation, if you want it. It's an optional card, really. Eternal Witness. You want stuff back from the graveyard. Eternal Witness also triggers Ezuri. Seasons Past doesn't trigger Ezuri, but it's going to get you a whole bunch of different things. So it's definitely worth the inclusion. Beastmaster Ascension. If you're making a bunch of little 2 power or less guys, you may as well make them 7/7s. Rite of Replication. Once your little dudes are bigger, let's make a whole bunch of them. You know? Bow of Nylea. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch, as if they were not hard enough to deal with as it was. Bident of Thassa. Oh, and now when you're hitting the opponent, you're drawing cards. And you can tell your opponent's creatures to attack you whenever you want. Birds of Paradise. Triggers Ezuri, ramps you. Very good card. So you might want to look into some more ramps. You're going to see Chromatic Lantern in a lot of my multicolored decks just because it is that good. Consider getting it as soon as you can. Expedition Map. Get any land you need. This is an EDH staple for a reason. It is that good. So is Sol Ring. If you don't know what a Sol Ring is yet, I'm guessing you've never played Commander or Old School Magic. Get these. Thought Vessel. You're going to have a lot of cards by the end of this. Mana Rock with, Cryptolith Right. You're going to have a lot of dudes. Let's make some mana with those dudes. Cultivate. EDH staple. Get yourself some basics. Probably a forest and an island so you can fix everything. Explosive Vegetation. Just throw 2 of those basics right into play tapped. It's good stuff. So, you've done your ramping. Now you want to tear apart things. Draw cards, blow things up. We have you covered. Start with the Skull Clamp. Your little dudes are going to, draw you a lot of cards if you play your cards right. Sylvan Library is one of the best green card draw engines that has ever been printed. Take advantage of the reprint. Beast Within. It destroys any permanent. It gives them a 3/3, but you don't care. Lightning Greaves to protect Ezuri because he is going to be a hate magnet. So you want to keep him protected. Counterspell will keep him protected. Remember, you got blue. So you can hold on to these for when you really need them. Mystic Snake will keep you protected as well. You know what's great about Mystic Snake in this deck? It triggers Ezuri. Even better. Plasm Capture. Yeah, you run these colors, you got to run this because it's straight up mana ramp and it solves a problem. You want to solve some more problems, maybe creature problems? Let's turn them all into pigs. Verdant Confluence, Jackknife card, Swiss Army knife card, whatever you want to call it. Counters, cards, greatness. Ezuri's Predation. You got to have the namesake in here. You know, put a 4/4 in play, make it fight all your opponents do. Oh, it's good. Cyclonic Rift. Any deck with blue probably runs this. There's a reason. You know, all this stuff, it is going to cost you. You do have to have a nice mana base. So here's an example of one. Command Tower. Yep, it's a multicolored deck. You want to run Command Tower. City of Brass. You're running a multicolored deck. City of Brass, pretty easy to get a hold of. Mana Confluence also works. Breeding Pool. Shocklands, they're in all my multicolored decks for a reason. 2 life is nothing to pay in EDH. Flooded Grove. If you have some of these lying around, filter lands are also great for mana fixing. Hinterland Harbor, for when you have forests or plains in play, this just comes into play untapped. It's good. Lumbering Falls. Enters the battlefield tapped, but it can become a dude with hexproof. And you can put counters on it with Ezuri. Yavimaya Coast, nice and cheap, easy to get right now. Makes colorless and the mana you need. This can help you scry and make the 2 colors that you need, so include it. Simic Growth Chamber. This is a fine example of a ramp card in land. If you have the money or you have them kicking around, obviously, Misty Rainforest is a great inclusion. Evolving Wilds, and your friend Terramorphic Expanse if you don't have the Misty Rainforest. Always remember them. Reflecting Pool. This is a great little card. Since you only have 2 colors, you're generally making 2 colors with this. Vivid Grove. This will help you mana fix. And when it's done with counters, you can proliferate. Vivid Creek. It's the blue version of that green card you just saw. So yeah, use this too. Yavimaya Hollow. This is a little harder to get a hold of these days, but 1 green. Regenerate target creature. Seems legit. Commander damage is always important, as I always say. You could just use Ezuri to dump the counters on Ezuri and kill him with commander damage. The Novagen Heart of Progress. You know, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that entered this turn. It's good. Command Beacon. Maybe Azori's getting too expensive for you to cast. Sacrifice the beacon. Plop him into your hand. Cast him on the cheap. A land that triggers Ezuri? Yes, these exist. Find a Dryad Arbor. Zoetic Cavern also triggers Ezuri. Just play it as a morph creature. Temple of the False God. When you got your easy-to-get 5 lands in EDH, you now have more mana. Reliquary Tower. It's a lot like the Thought Vessel. Gives you the no maximum hand size staple there. Fill out the rest of your deck with a fairly equal mix. A little heavier on the forests, I'd say. But, you know, just forest and island, so you can pretty much do it 50-50 if you really want to. It's up to you. Choices are good. And maybe some of the choices in this deck you don't like. Well, I have a whole bunch of extra ideas for you. Pathbreaker Ibrax. If you can't afford the Craterhoof Behemoth, honestly, this works just as well. Worldly Tutor. You might need a specific creature, so you might not have a card in the deck. Swap it with Worldly Tutor. Or Traverse the Ulvenwald, because this will get you a land or a critter. And it's in standard right now. It's easy to get. Draining Welk, if you need another counter spell and you want to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on your dude, Draining Welk's a classic. This should just be in the deck, really. Nissa Voices Endicott does everything you want it to do. So consider it. If you have a Big Daddy Karn Liberated sitting around, he's a solid inclusion. I'm not going to tell you not to run him. Cure the Crashing Wave. It's mana ramp. Prevents damage. Makes giant dudes. For more mana rocky rampiness, consider Commander Sphere. It's a solid thing. Draws you cards. Consider Courser of Crewfix if you don't have the Oracle of Moldiah. It's not as good, but it's close. Forgotten Agent slips right into this deck, really. He just costs 4 is the only downside, but he triggers Ezuri and makes more counters. This is Man Ramp. This is Make Dudes. This is Overrun. Garruk Wildspeaker, classic EDH, green Planeswalker. Garruk Primal Hunter, not as classic a green Planeswalker, but it can draw you an amazing amount of cards. Tezzeret's Gambit will draw you 2 cards. You can pay it with Phyrexian mana, and then you get to proliferate when you're done. Maybe you can't afford a doubling season. Primal Vigor's considerably cheaper. It'll affect them too, so be aware of that. Maybe you want to go the token route instead of the counter route. I don't know why Ezuri is your commander, but Parallel Lives is there for you. And while you're going down that route, Second Harvest. It's in standard, and it doubles your tokens. Deranged Hermit's a classic. If you have a copy of this, you will not be sorry running this in your Ezuri deck. Terastodon. If you need more removal, this is classic. It will blow up many things. If there's a Primal Vigor in play, be careful who you aim it at. Avenger of Zendikar. Another EDH green staple. It will make a bunch of dudes. Spike Feeder. Triggers Ezuri. Constant source of gaining life. Consider this in your main deck. Inspiring Call is a nice little combat trick. Draws you a bunch of cards and makes your guys indestructible. So consider it. Corrosion Grip for those annoying artifacts and enchantments. Multani Marrow Sorcerer. When you're drawing cards and your opponent's drawing cards, this guy gets huge, and he has Shroud. Overwhelming Stampede is like a pumped-up overrun that this deck can take advantage of. Plaxcaster Frogling. It has grab, comes in with 3, and it can give your guy Shroud. He's a little techie. Prime Speaker Zagana, however, is just about taking all those Ezuri counters you put on somebody and drawing cards with them. Progenitor Mimic is just fun. You got doubling season. Yeah, just run Progenitor Mimic. Reality Shift is another cheap form of removal that's easy to find these days. It'll exile a dude and give him a 2/2. Void Slime is a classic, but it'll also counter activated or triggered abilities. Regrowth. You know, when Eternal Witness just isn't enough, you have Regrowth. Again, Rhystic Study. Any blue deck you have, consider running this because people will let you draw cards off of it. For ramp, if you want some more options, Sky Shroud Claim is great. Tempt with Discovery is also great. Your opponents are probably going to get lands off this, especially if one's mana screwed, but you get a whole bunch. You got tokens and stuff. Consider Worm Coil Engine. Triskelion. Counters. Almost unlimited damage if you do it right. Some decks you can do unlimited damage. World Breaker. This will take care of all kinds of stuff. And by sacking a land, you can recur it over and over. 1 Power Stone. Yet another form of ramp if you need another form of ramp. And that brings us to the end of another Commander Banter. Let me know what you thought. Like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, Dottie saying bye-bye.